Good morning, everyone, and welcome to, hello, 1st of December, and welcome to this month's The New World of New Biz. So as you can see, I have gone all out on the Christmas theme. I've got my Christmas jumper. It is the 1st of December, so I know loads of people have already been putting their Christmas tree up early, me being one of those people. So as we round up the year, I thought we'd make it a bit of fun. Of course, we have Bam Bam on his, in his best Christmas outfit. So yes, happy 1st of December, and also happy nearly out of semi-lockdown. So to end the year, I can't believe this is the last The New World of New Biz session. I have got an amazing lineup for you. But just before I introduce all of our wonderful guests, I thought I just would reference, so if there's anyone here, sorry, housekeeping stuff, say hello in the Q&A or in the chat. Anyone that joined last month when I was talking about doing my best Paulie Yates impression, because I was going to have to start hosting the Zoom on my bed because I had roadworks going on outside my house. I have let Zig and Zag have an honorary appearance, although I'm not on my bed. They have made it into my little office. So yes, for any of you that joined last month and heard me talking about being Paulie Yates, unfortunately I don't have my questions, but I do have Zig and Zag. So on to the New World of New Biz. So we have three fantastic guests with us today to end the year and start to look towards what we all should be focusing our new biz and marketing efforts in the agency landscape on for 2021. So I'm going to work like this as I can see everyone. We have the wonderful James. So James heads up digital marketing and e-commerce at Osprey. I also have the pleasure of having worked with James at Redweb. So not only does he have the client hat on today and some really interesting insights, he also has worked agency world and on New Biz. So has a really good, he's one of those nice clients that actually knows about both worlds. We also have Jonathan Sands. So Jonathan, you kind of have two hats. So not only is Jonathan just lovely, one of the loveliest men that I've met in the agency world, CEO of Elmwood, has sat on the board of some of the fastest growing agencies in the UK, including And Digital, and is now the chairman of an AI veterinary app called Joy, which I actually used at the weekend because Bam Bam was feeling a bit poorly, and it is amazing. So Jonathan also comes with heaps of experience, having run and founded Elmwood sort of, how many years ago, Jonathan? 25?
Well, I wish it was. It's 38 years I've been at Elmwood.
Oh
I joined when I was 7.
Oh God, yeah, exactly. Well, no, probably younger than that. You were just born. So Jonathan comes with heaps of experience, and then of course the lovely Holly. Holly is MD of BIMA, so not only has the kind of agency view on the world, but they've just recently They've just recently released their State of the Nation report, which has some really interesting insights from brands as well on what they want to hear from agencies. So on that note, Holly, I'll let you all chit chat. I'm going to go straight over to you because I know the State of the report had some really interesting stats, which I think is a great way for us to get started and hear about what you've heard. And then James, Jonathan, feel free to get involved with the conversation and give your views. But it'd be great to know what we can learn from the report as we head into 2021.
Okay, I will do my best. So this was launched about 6 weeks ago. 2020 time has gone strange. And we surveyed agencies and clients basically with the aim of helping them understand each other so that they can support each other and kind of better navigate the next 6 to 12 months, the kind of which is going to be difficult for a lot of people. It came out of, I do have to kind of give them kudos, our senior leaders network, also our brands council and our growth council. So it was a real group effort, this thing. And I would say I'm going to literally pull out, I've got kind of 3 or 4 kind of interesting stats, but I would say go to our site and download it. We actually look across small, medium, large agencies and clients, and there's advice for both. So it's quite detailed, it's quite hefty. But I would say, yeah, so certainly from my perspective, there's a few clear learnings, and I know it is always the obvious stuff, but that's kind of it, isn't it? So one was just, be super clear on your value and your point of difference. When we ask clients, who were their most attractive partners, 44% said those that demonstrated relevant case studies with clear ROI. So, be really super clear, do your research and know exactly, what people are looking to see. I think then leading into point 2, 23% also said those that had been recommended by a trusted peer. So again, really, really important. This speaks to, at this time, expanding your network, attending, lots of sessions like this, all of BIMA stuff, of course, but also, making sure you're really taking care of your current clients, your ex-clients, your clients that never quite made it to clients, basically everyone in your network. That's where you will get the best recommendations and business from. And I think kind of pretty much my last point is around just being super empathetic. So when we surveyed agencies, there was a huge mix, as you can imagine, on whether people were doing well or finding things more challenging. I think we had 27% were making redundancies or planning to make redundancies, but over 40% were hiring. So there's this kind of insane spread. With clients, it was, even if there was a mix of revenues, so even if some, obviously depending on sectors, some people have found this a really challenging year, some people have done really well. Budgets had actually been pretty much slashed across the board. So I think over 70% of clients we surveyed had at least 25% budget slash. So they're all suffering. I think as a result, let me have some water. Oh, thank you. Too many stats too quickly.
Water up, so I've actually bought my water. Bonus.
So as a result, well, and also just 2020, they're making tons of changes. So it's not a surprise that 90% of clients are changing their ways of working for the long term. But I think 44% are changing their marketing strategy and 36% are changing their business model. So they're going through these huge changes, and what they're looking for is, they're looking for people that can support those changes. So definitely digital transformation, definitely, digital marketing and performance, certainly in kind of BIMA world anyway. But also they're looking for people that are going to be flexible, so that, a couple of clients brought up the idea of different kind of revenue models. They're looking for people that are going to be super proactive and really focused on ROI. So again, it was like, okay, don't just tell us that, but help us tell that story to the rest of the client. Help us push this through, and secure budget for it. So it was a real emphasis on being a really true partner there, and really helping them get through what is, a pretty tumultuous time. I guess last but not least, there was just a little bit of detail on small agencies, so small to medium-sized agencies. So what we saw is that most of them were actually just had lots of pitches. That's not actually the problem at the moment, and actually we're doing less outbound. So they had, a lot of pipeline, but then there was a lot of talk around, okay, how good is that pipeline, and how valuable are those pitches? So a lot of people doing a lot of work, everyone is insanely busy, but not necessarily getting the work at the end of the day. So a lot of our experts were, recommending qualifying and re-qualifying those pitches, and also just making sure that, your whole team, there's some process there, so that you're qualifying, you're re-qualifying, and then it's all driven by process, and that you're taking care of them as far as their mental health and well-being and hours and, all of that good stuff. So yeah, that was my takeaways. There's tons more, but
yeah, there's some. We've popped the link, so for any, we will send it out in the
thank you.
email comms as well. But we've popped the link in the chat, so if anyone wants to check out that report, please do. One of the things that you talk about, Holly, which I do think I would like to elaborate on, is that people have cut budgets, but that doesn't necessarily mean for lots of clients that they've cut their marketing budget. And something that we've seen, although budgets for lots of clients have been slashed, James, you can tell me what's been happening at Osprey here, because I know that this might ring true for you guys, or some of it might ring true, is although they are cutting budgets, often they're spending more on marketing. And because, like you're saying, Holly, that they're having to make some pretty seismic shifts to the way their company runs often, and I talk about this a lot, there are lots and lots of companies. I think early doors there was some stats, something like 49% of companies in the UK have had to launch a new product or service in order to survive the pandemic. So most people are going to need some sort of help from agencies to either launch that new product or service, or market it, or build it, or whatever it might be. So don't think, and it was really interesting for those of you that joined last month's webinar, when we had the lovely Rachel from EasyJet, that she was saying, although they've had 90% of their staff, furloughed and obviously some redundancies, that actually her marketing budget and spend has gone up. So they're investing more in agencies. So I think, naturally agencies, we think, oh gosh, that company's struggling, therefore we shouldn't approach them. Some of the companies that are struggling are the ones that need our help the most. And just because they've had budget slashed, and this is different, of course, every client's going to be different, but I think, just thinking about how you can help them and where that need might be, it is worthwhile. James, I know that you've had some of those changes.
We've had ups and downs. I think, for us, it's not necessarily, it's like you say, it's not necessarily budget related. I think it speaks more to the sort of the flexibility point that Holly was mentioning. It's less about, financials or commercials, more about, probably, we're taking a new look at how we should be handling ourselves, taking a look at how our partners are handling ourselves, contractual obligations, things like that. And that flexibility point that Holly mentioned is super, super important, because as a brand, we've got to be agile, and we've got to learn to move in different directions, be that content or marketing or whatever. And we need the agencies to do that as well. And I guess just to confirm a few other points that Holly said, ROI is beyond a doubt the most important first step. You will be surprised how many guys jump to, let's get a room full of our 5 specialists, be that content experts or development guys or whatever. Let's get a room of these people together and have a massive meeting that lasts an hour before we've even talked about some basic ROI stuff. And I think we understand, we're all adults, we're all grown-ups, and we understand that with forecasts and an ROI comes a list as long as your arm of caveats, and we get that. I've been agency side, and even those who aren't agency side understand that nothing's set in stone. But there's some initial steps that you can take before jumping to that. Let's have a room full of people and pour an hour down the drain on this that may not be a perfect fit for either parties. And I think forecast and having a brief conversation about commercials in advance is an important part of that. And we understand that there's caveats, and we understand that nothing is guaranteed as the brand. We just want to have that conversation, be transparent and upfront, and get that out the way first. Yeah. And obviously I understand that we need to scope. Often you need to scope to find the ROI, and you have to scope to find the forecast. I'm not suggesting that, but those initial conversations, like what is realistic, what are the realistic cost implications here, can really, really save time for both parties.
And you guys have had to make some quite big or you've changed your focus at Osprey in 2020, haven't you, in terms of your product, because parts of the business have done really well, whereas other parts have probably suffered.
Yeah,
What that meant from how you, I guess, what you want to hear from agencies?
I think, like I said, so we've had to like flex, like other areas have done really well for us. Amazingly, lifestyle is kicking off. You wouldn't have thought that people buying everyday packs that are like backpacks that are, usually for commute would be doing well right now, but it's absolutely kicked off, and it's because people have got disposable income, whereas other areas, maybe travel, we do luggage, obviously, not so much. So I guess how that's impacted us with speaking to agencies is, if they're coming in and having like I think first protocol would be, look at our categories, make some common sense assumptions about what we're about. Don't come in blind. We're not Osprey London, the handbag brand, for example. You'll be surprised how many people I've had show me the leather handbag brand on a screen. And just make some common sense assumptions about where our business might be at the moment. And I've had a few guys that have done that, and those have been some of the more interesting conversations I've had, where they've come in with some ideas off the bat, where I wouldn't have considered speaking to them, and said, "Hey, we notice you've got travel, but you've also got lifestyle, multi-sport, running. Have you thought about doing this with running? Because people are still getting out on their 1 hour exercise or whatever." Those sorts of conversations are really cool. Some people, don't do that, and some people will show me Osprey London, the handbag brand, and that's often an awkward conversation.
Yeah, do your research. In fact, that's something that Jonathan and I, in fact, we were speaking about that in our prep call for today, weren't we, Jonathan? That the importance of agencies actually doing their research before they pitch, and how many people don't do that. You get these amazing opportunities, and agencies sometimes forget to do their research.
Well, it's absolutely true, isn't it? I mean, it's a fundamental to do your homework. I think I'd just like to pick up on something that Holly, and James were talking about right now. The best and most critical part of business development and is keeping relationships alive, and it is about empathy. Holly mentioned empathy. And James talked really about understanding the business, understanding the issues, and it's really interesting. Lots of people have talked to me recently about how are you coping in this environment, and how are you doing business development. And actually, for me, nothing has changed, because business development is all about relationships. It's all about understanding your customer or prospective customer as a human being, and so whether you're dealing with them over Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it might be, or you're seeing them down the pub or in their office, it's still about a conversation. It's still about a relationship. And actually, I think right now, in many respects, business development is easier than it's ever been, because everybody's in the same boat. Most of us are working from home, and so when you go into a place of work, nobody really comments about the office or the meeting room that they're in. And so right now, as you've got your little dog on your lap and
props, and so have you. I can't believe we've got this far in.
And I've got my giant 7-foot-high reindeer. It gives you an opportunity to, what's that in your background?
You're going to have to leave that up for all your calls now.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I was dealing with a client in New Zealand earlier in the week, a new business opportunity. And of course, they're 13 hours ahead of us at the moment. So it was our evening and their morning. And they said, "Oh, well, at least you'll be able to have a glass of wine shortly." And I said, "I've always got a bottle of wine on my desk." And the second meeting we had, they said, "So have you got a bottle of wine with you again, Jonathan?" And I said, "You know more about me now than you ever would have done in the normal situation, because you've got a window into people's homes. And if you really know your customer," so for instance, the other day, I'm a keen golfer, and the Masters was on the TV a few weeks ago, and it reminded me of a client in the US who was a mad keen golfer. And so all of a sudden I'm texting him and emailing him about who he fancied to win. And, you know, I couldn't bring myself to, I put a bet on this year. I couldn't bring myself to put a bet on an American, even though I've got a feeling an American's going to win. And sure enough, they did. And all of a sudden on a Sunday, we were having conversations. And this is a guy that I know relatively well, but not super well. And so I think one of the things that is absolutely necessary right now is to have conversations that are uplifting, and it gives you the chance to have humor and wit in your conversation. I mean, this ridiculous thing, I mean, I can't even remember why or how we bought it, but it's been around the house for a few years now. And I think it's a great opportunity, a better opportunity than ever before, to show your true self rather than your corporate self. So yeah, it's sort of a segue from doing your research to really understanding the personality. It's sort of, we're going a step beyond understanding a business need to understanding the human need. And right now, if you can be empathetic, if you can be uplifting, if you can take yourself not too seriously, it's a real way in.
I really agree. I really agree with that. I think I had like a 10-minute conversation. We've got a new account manager with our affiliate network, and I had a 10-minute conversation about the movie poster I've got behind me. And you know what? It was the first time I spoke to him. It just set us off on the right foot, and it's the small touches. And you know, we're not getting the water cooler conversations at the moment, and my partner gets sick of me like wandering into her room and like annoying her on a regular basis. So you know, you're totally right that those little touches and those little conversations, one, they're massively important for relationship building. Two, it's just on a human level, it's just nice to have, and it's something that, you know, we are lacking. So totally agree with that point.
But it does surprise me how many people either don't have their screen on. That kills me.
What's that all about? What are you hiding? You know, just haven't got dressed yet, right?
Yes.
But I think, you know, it's really interesting how many people don't really think about their backgrounds. And you know, and also they start eating in, you know, I was on
a my mince pie then.
Yeah, you're all right with a mince pie, but somebody was chomping on a burger, and as well as looking horrible, it sounded horrible. But I was on a new business call about a month ago, and I didn't realize what I was doing on the call until afterwards. And this guy had an amazing chaise longue in his room. So I commented on it, and all of a sudden he's saying, well, actually, do you know, this was my grandparents, and it was in an old barn in my grandparents' house, and we've had it reupholstered. And for the first 15 minutes, the first time I ever met this guy, we're talking about furniture and things that have been handed down from the family. Yeah. And then I sent him a picture of a chair that my grandmother used to have as well. And all of a sudden, you've got a relationship going, which would take months in the normal way. So, you know, a little top tip is always comment on something that's in, you know, whether it be zig and zag in Katie's background, or, you know, it just really helps create a relationship faster than in the traditional way.
I'm mostly, oh, sorry, you go, Holly.
I was just going to say, I'd be interested to know, certainly just from the audience, from me speaking to members, it feels like people are winning more clients abroad as well, because it's just so much easier to build those relationships, whereas before it would, you know, obviously going backwards and forwards and feeling like you had to do these things in person. And I guess, you know, not to mention the B word, but, you know, from next year, those things are going to be really important. The sorts of, you know, the way we can develop relationships across the world is going to, you know, we're going to have to really focus on.
I think it's opened us up, and I'm totally with you. Well, what all of you have said. I think what we need to make sure that we're doing, and, you know, I've got a bit of an example of it here in terms of me doing something that's memorable, but is to, like you say, to comment on, when I used to go into the pitch room in the real world, which feels like forever ago, and I don't do it so much now, but when I led new business at an agency, I'd always, I guess, just something that I would do anyway is compliment someone on their watch. Oh, I love your watch, or and it's just doing the same. It's trying to make it as personal as you can, so that you're building a relationship. Because, sorry, my dog is climbing around like a mad thing. We're trying to make it as normal and friendly as possible, because some of the best new business relationships that I've had, because I've got on really well with the person, and that, and then they take me from one company to the next when they move on, and it's super, super important. So not just saying make them your friend, but do really focus on making it personal. We have had a question in from Tom saying, what do you guys think about green screened backgrounds rather than normal backgrounds?
Well, I think if you are lucky enough to be able to have a room where you don't need a green screen, then personally I don't like them. But equally, people have found themselves, if you're younger and you're living in a bed sit, or you're having to work from your kitchen table, then obviously a green screen.
Sometimes they're just needed, aren't they?
They and some of them are really funny. So I think the same rules apply. Is don't just have a boring background.
Off the shelf,
Make a point with it.
I mean, if you're complimenting the client, so one of the guys, Jack Fitzgerald, hello, has said about, they've had, they were pitching to a spirits brand and they had a bottle of the spirit in the background. Great. And if you can do something with your image that's, to do with your pitch or your meeting, that's maybe a picture of their brand or their advert or whatever it is, that you tend to be talking to them about, 100%. I think then it's a good thing to do. But I'm totally with what you're saying, Jonathan, is if you can make it personal and do it in the real world, what you don't want to do is it feel fake or like you're hiding something. I think more than ever we need to be transparent and real, and having a green screen up isn't transparent.
I think I've been on a number of calls, and I'm sure everybody has, where a kid's come in from the side in a door, or slammed a door, or a dog's come in. Or I was on a new business call with a colleague the other day, and she had to turn to her husband and said, "Would you turn the tap off, please? I'm in a meeting." And, he was making his tea, and the tap was really noisy, and people forgive it. It shows a human nature, to it. So it's that balance between showing the real you and being unprofessional.
Definitely, it's a new world that we're in. In fact, I think I've managed to have it's helped us win more clients. We've been, I guess, one of the lucky agencies amidst the pandemic, because we do help people reach the right clients, and I think agencies realise that they need that more than ever at the moment, or lots of agencies do. So we've been busier than ever, and I wouldn't have been able to meet the amount of agencies that I've met without having Zoom or Teams or whatever it might be. It's meant that I can do so much more. And like I say, I've got really, I mean, it seems weird that I've not actually seen a lot of these people that I would now refer to as my friends in 3D. I mean, we've all met in 3D, so I'm lucky. But I've got people that I speak to nearly every day now that I've never actually met, and I don't feel like I haven't met them. I'm trying to, obviously tomorrow we can actually have business meetings, so some of our newer clients who I haven't met, I'm really trying to hook up with and have lunch or something as semi-normal as I'm allowed to do. But I think it's actually enabled us to scale and grow quite quickly, which is,
I think we've seen that those people that really just jumped feet first into it, like on 23rd of March,
just go,
just like got on with it, have done the best, or making the best out of it anyway, just because they didn't worry too much about it. They just got on with it and saw that the most important thing was to connect with people, because that's absolutely what everyone needed to do for at least the first couple of months. And those people that just went for it, and I I can certainly say that kind of our team did that, doing pretty much zero online before, because it was a digital community and they always wanted physical events, to pretty much doing a session every day for about 6 weeks. And they weren't all brilliant, and I'm sure we had the odd Zoom bomber and all, but it just, ultimately you're making that connection, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, my daughter and Bam Bam are famous now. I mean, she slammed doors. I think she's born at me. Sorry, obviously I'm a terrible mother. But we've had it all, because it was so hard when we were all stuck at home. It's impossible not. I've had her lying on the floor whilst I've been hosting a webinar or doing a podcast. But that's life, and actually it just shows us as real people. We've all got the same, and it actually gives people empathy for your situation. Like, yes, that's also happened to me. Back on to kind of new. Oh, sorry, James.
One last point on this, just because I saw someone comment. Mark Lucy in the comments said, are those distractions unprofessional, etc. I actually, there's a good point in there. I think Jonathan's points stand for like icebreakers. When you're first meeting your clients, those initial conversations. These are real. We're all stuck working from home, and that's the reality of working from home. And these things are going to happen. I think when it comes to like a pitch, or from a brand perspective, when I'm bringing in like stakeholders, i.e. directors, the board of directors, I think Mark's got a point there. There does have to be a level of professionalism. There does need to be that point where we're pretending we're in the pitch room and we're, into pitch mode.
Yeah.
But there's also a level of understanding. So, both points stand, and, different times, different places, different settings, I think, on that.
Everyone's trying their best, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's about there's a balance between being real, and we're all in this together, and we're all having to work from our homes. And so if UPS suddenly knocks on your door, you can't do much about it. To others where you've got your bed's unmade if you're in your bedroom, or you just think, I was having somebody pitch to me the other day, and the settings weren't appropriate, and so I think it's a real fine balance.
I agree. Yeah, fully agree.
Yeah, it is. You've got to judge it. Depending, if I'm mid pitch to a client or mid a really important presentation, and my doorbell goes, I just ignore it, because to me that's more important. If I miss a delivery, I miss a delivery. That's one of those things. You've got to take your own spin on these things as well. Yeah. Gosh, there's so much I want to ask you guys about. I'm going to try.
The chat's going wild. I'm like, stand up, sit down, wear baseball caps, don't wear baseball caps.
So if you have got specific questions, put them in the Q&A, because then they'll pop up and I'm more likely to see them, because the chat is going wild, which is what we want. And if there's anything in there that we don't cover off, we do check it all afterwards, and we will try and get back to you with responses if we've missed anything. So one of the things I would love to dig into a little bit more deeply, for all of you really, but maybe start with you, James, is how do agencies get your attention in the current world? How on earth do they reach you? Because I know, and we've spoken about this with lots of brands, that you get, God knows, I don't know, tell me, how many approaches do you get a day, a week?
It varies. At the moment, it feels like it's, it could be up to 10 a day on some days. Like it really is intense. And, ideally I'd respond to them all and say, sorry, not right now, super busy or whatever, but that's not feasible. I'd spend my life like literally responding to cold emails. But yeah, it's pretty intense. I think, for me, there's a few points I'd say on the cold email or lead gen aspect. I will never ever begrudge that first email, ever. I understand well, I want, in fact, I want it. I'm probably going to regret this, but I do, I encourage people to reach out, because some of the,
Let's get hundreds of emails.
yeah, I know. Well, it can't, I don't, I touch wood, it can't get any more intense than it is right now. But, I understand that, it's part of your business, and, I can always, this sounds brutal, but I can always ignore them. I can ignore them, and I can file them, or I can save them for a later date. So I understand the initial email. I think one of the things I will say is the content of that email and the way that's presented. Firstly, I often get emails that are quite clearly templated, which really, really annoys me, because it's like you've taken the time to queue up a bunch of emails, but you've not taken the time to personalize it to the service or the whatever you're talking about, to me, to Osprey. Typos, guys, come on. You will be surprised how many typos I get in lead gen emails. It is ridiculous. I would say immediate chasers drive me absolutely insane. That's a major one. I think, often, like I said, busy, like dozens and dozens of emails coming in a week. I can't respond to them all. The ones that stand out, I will obviously do that for. The ones to make them stand out, I think, including, what makes you different in your email. Obviously, I'm going to say this is almost like, standard marketing practices, but a solid subject line will get you, quite far. Nothing too extreme, but nothing, nothing really, really dull, because you will end up just getting filed. So a solid subject line will do you well in that case. Inside the email, definitely just an introduction and links to case studies. Oh, please keep sending me links to case studies, because that is a massive deciding factor. If you send me a link to a bunch of clients you've worked with and the case studies happen to fit something I've got going on right now, I'm far more likely to consider those people. If it's just an email saying, oh, can we book a call, blah, 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 introduction to the agency, I'm less likely, because I haven't got something else that's, immediately available to latch onto there. And finally, I'll say there's often gimmicks that are included in these emails. Now, some of these are cool, some of these aren't. I received one that was a personalized video message. They'd like done a video message and scrawled my name on a whiteboard. Now, I remember that. I haven't actually responded to them, but I remember that. Don't center it around the gimmick. If there is some sort of gimmick to your lead gen, great. Don't center it around that, but it has stuck in my mind. So,
do you remember the agency, James, or do you remember the gimmick?
I do remember the agency. Yeah, I do actually remember the agency. But that's only because I think I was talking to someone about it, and then I was like, oh, who was that? So I probably, if the person hadn't asked who it was, I might not have remembered. So that's a fair point. I think
one of the things that we push, and tell me whether you think this is something that you would respond better to, is we try to develop tactics that represent how the agency is going to be able to help the client. So that might be a webinar, it might be a piece of insightful content, i.e. a white paper or a report or an insights post. Is that something, would you rather someone shared something with you or invited you to something as a starting point, then you would go, hey, we're an agency, this is how we're going to help you?
Yeah, I think, so you're talking like adding value before that stage. So, whether that's insight or whatever. Yeah, definitely. I've had a few reports about, similar to like state of the industry type emails, or we found this out about emails and we've been subscribed to your newsletters. We think you'll find this interesting. Those sorts of emails do catch my attention as well. Again, I hate to say it, but the sheer volume of emails we get does make it quite hard to read them all. But that is another, almost like USP in the email box that helps us make that decision. Finally, I hate to say this, but word of mouth kind of trumps emails a little bit. It's annoying because it's not something that's easy to latch onto. But we were talking about this, guys, yesterday. Word of mouth is hugely important. Be that for me, ex-agency colleagues, be that acquaintances in other brands, be that guys who, you mentioned it earlier actually, Holly, people that maybe didn't land the pitch in the first instance but have maintained a really good relationship. That's actually come back around for me in one of my current conversations, and that's hugely important. So those sorts of like passive conversations and those sorts of passive tactics, I actually think are more important and have probably led to more relationships and partnerships for Osprey than pure lead gen emails.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And don't pitch and ditch. That is, if you haven't got decent marketing content, and you're not an agency that's working on your marketing, like Holly said earlier, the agencies that started this earlier put themselves out there at the beginning of the pandemic and have been nurturing their audience. I guess me doing these is a good example of it to a certain extent, is, are the ones that are losing out. If you haven't got a reason to keep in touch with your lost prospects, the pitches that you've lost, the people that you've connected with, if you haven't got a marketing content calendar with insights, events, webinars, whatever it might be, that you can share with them to nurture them, someone else will be, and they'll be listening to them and not to you. So I just would urge all agencies, if you haven't got your plans together, to really start to think about how you're going to continue that engagement and develop decent relationships and conversations outside of, hey, can we meet for a coffee, because that's a little bit further down the line.
And being part of these, I'm not just plugging this event or events in general, but being part of these events, that's hugely important, because I will have conversations with people like you, Katie, or I will have conversations with maybe not the Hollies of the world, but colleagues of Hollies, and
And now Holly.
And now Hollies, and now Hollies, and these conversations wouldn't necessarily happen if all the people weren't involved. So definitely hugely important, and I much prefer those sorts of relationship starters over just an email in my inbox.
Definitely, because showing them how you're going to help them, to me, is 2 or 3 steps down the pipeline. First of all, not showing you how that you're going to help them, showing them how you're going to help them and giving them helpful insight is the first thing. Then later down, it's showing, and we've done, what we told you about, we've done that for one of our clients. Here's a really interesting case study about how we did it, and it shows the ROI. And those are later things. Don't go straight in with that, because there'll be another 10 people emailing James today with that. So it's going to be much harder for you to cut through. You need to make it feel personal. You need to make it helpful. And it's probably one of my biggest tips of 2020. We all need help more than we ever did, really.
My top tips for email writing are 3, really. Number 1, have a compelling header. So make sure that people go, ooh, what's that? So I'll write something like, have your ears been burning? And then all of a sudden people go, somebody's been talking about me. What's all this about?
Yeah.
So little tips to write a header that makes people go, I better read this. Second, pick the right time of day to send it. I quite often send emails on a Sunday evening, because I find what most busy people do is read their emails on a Sunday just to get ahead of themselves for the week ahead. And third, keep it short. Just make sure that you really keep your point pithy, because as James has clearly articulated, he gets bombarded with emails. So if all of a sudden he opens something and it's 10 paragraphs long, you're not going to get your point across. So make sure the opening header is, ooh, what do they know? Who's been talking about me? Or whatever the compelling point is. Keep it short and send it at the right time when you're going to get it read, and it's not going to get snaffled by a secretary or PA, or they're going to see it.
We've actually done some research on that, because obviously we run lots of campaigns for agencies who are trying to reach brands or companies. So there's loads of research out there, HubSpot and other people, you can read stuff, but we thought, well, let's look at everything we've done. So we started tracking it in sort of March, April, since the pandemic hit, to see, has email send times changed, and we've done lots of different tests. Oh, there we go. Look, my doorbell's going. It's going to get ignored. So we've done lots of different times, sends. So there is a whole article on our website written by the lovely Katie, who works for me, not me, the other Katie, DLC we call her. Katie, if you're listening, can you post it? The link to your lovely article. So yeah, which is specifically for agencies who are trying to reach brands and on the best send times. And I love the tip about the heading. One of the things that I try to introduce, which is good and bad, but uses the power of psychology, is making people feel like they've not like the power of guilt or like they've something like I often will use that in my headers, like not. I think I've talked a lot about have I lost you, because people hate feeling like they've lost something, or have you forgotten, did I miss you, or so, isn't it like, oh my god, I forgot to dial into this Zoom or what. So yeah, maybe I'm a bit mean, but
I'll remember that, Katie. You guilt trip us.
No guilt trip.
I think to your point as well about being helpful, it's about demonstrating, showcasing your expertise, and you can do that on like webinars and sessions like this, but there are so many other ways as well. It's thought leadership, it's white papers and reports, but it's also, being part of we do things like our mentoring scheme, and you can be giving back and getting quite a lot as well as doing that soft kind of, we're really good at this, and this is our, as an agency, our area of expertise, and we want to give back to that broader community with this, but you're showcasing what you're good at, and certainly for someone like BIMA, who is a mixed community, then people are taking notice, and it's a longer build, but I think it's important to do that kind of 360.
Definitely, yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's what's great. I mean, that's the other thing, James, we were talking earlier about referrals, being part of communities. So for those of you, I don't know if I explained BIMA, but BIMA, for those of you that don't know, we just expect everyone to know who BIMA is, the British Interactive Media Association. So they're like,
that's our old school name.
Kind of, I always think of you, and I think this may be an old way of explaining you as well, but it's the governing body for digital, really. So it's for there are a lot of agencies, but agencies and brands, tech companies.
It's about digital talent, yeah,
and that's a great place. If you're in, I mean, we're all digital now, but it's a great place to learn, network, get noticed, share stuff. So being part of those kind of communities. And really interesting, actually, I hosted a talk. God, I don't know what day of week it is, last week, for the BD 100s Winning Together. So hello to any of you that joined that, because I know some of you are joining again today. But the CEO of Eve Sleep, when she spoke on a panel for me, and she was talking about exactly that, how she looks for agencies. So she does loads of judging for awards, because she wants to see what talent's out there. And I know lots of agencies say, is it worth entering awards? I'm not just saying just do it for the judges, but the reason brands do that is because they want to see the fresh talent, and the agencies that aren't the obvious ones that everyone sees all the time. They want to see the talent that's coming up. So there's lots of ways that we can get in touch. Now we only have 12 minutes left, and I have a tendency to overtalk. One thing I would like to dig into really quickly, Jonathan, and maybe we do like a few minutes on it, because you do talk about it on the podcast. So any of you that don't listen to my podcast, Word on the Street, all about new biz, marketing tactics, the kind of stuff that we talk about on here, but it's one-to-one interviews, and there is one coming out on Thursday with Jonathan. But that you have that kind of 7 ingredients to make a perfect new business approach or pitch process, called WibScat, don't you, Jonathan? Can you give us maybe just a couple of the ingredients of WibScat that are important to perfect the pitch, and where it came from as well?
Yeah, sure. So it's 10 years ago now, I reckon. We had a sort of industry hit rate of winning pitches. We'd win 1 in 2, 1 in 3, and it was always the 1 or 2 that you didn't win that upset you. Rather than spending loads of time celebrating the ones that you won, you were always beating yourselves up about the ones you didn't. And so I asked everybody in the agency to represent all of the pitches that they'd done over a 2-year period. I took a week off and I said, I want everybody to pitch all of those pitches to me, win or lose. And as a result, I identified 7 things that you needed to do to win. And you need to do all 7. If you miss one, that will be your Achilles heel. And it came true when, so I said, why did we not win that one? Oh, well, they briefed us on they wanted an adventurous route, and they actually went with a tweak of their existing design. Or they'd say, oh, well, we were too expensive. And in every case, it became clear that if they said we were too expensive, we'd clearly not been able to say to them, we're worth paying more for, or this is an important investment, you should spend wisely. Or if they went for a safe route and we gave them an adventurous route because that's what they'd asked for, we hadn't really got underneath the skin of the brief and thought, well, maybe, this brand is $1 billion brand. We ought to probably, do a tweak here rather than completely change it. And so as a result of this process, there were 7 things. And to remind myself of what these 7 things were, I created this word WIBSCAT, and each letter means one of the things. So the W is for wow. At the end of the day, people want to go, wow, this is amazing. But wow on its own won't win you the pitch, because if it isn't built on an insight, which is the I, then it's probably, it's amazing, but it's completely irrelevant. The B is it's got to go beyond brief. So you've got to answer the brief. If they've asked for an adventurous route, give them an adventurous route, but also really challenge the brief and give them what you, as a consultant, what you think they should have. The S is, I call it the Eric Morecambe piece of advice, which is anybody who used to watch Morecambe Wise Christmas specials. There was one with Andre Previn where he has an argument with Andre Previn because he's playing the piano and he's meant to be playing Grieg's piano concerto, and it's all a mess. And Andre Previn comes over to him and says, "You're playing all the wrong notes." And he says, "No, I'm playing all the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order." And so the S is for keep it simple. Make sure that you've got a start, a middle, and the end, so that at the end of the presentation they go, "I get it." And the C, which is we've talked a lot about, is be cheerful and charming. At the end of the day, if you've got 2 pitches or 3 pitches and they're all really good, you're all up against really good competitors. They're going to choose the people that they like.
Yeah.
They're going to choose the people who think, when I'm working really hard against tight deadlines, I want to be able to pick up the phone to that person who's going to make me smile, who's going to make me feel good. And it's that relationship thing, when you're in the pub with your friends, you want honest advice when they need it, and you want to joke when they're up for, a bit of a laugh. You've got to have that empathy. And so I'm gonna save the A and the T for myself. Otherwise, I'll give you 40 years of IP, and so you have to try and work out what the A and the T are. But
well, I think you might give away one of them on the podcast. You want to know?
One more on the podcast.
Thursday. There we go.
Watch the podcast. Yeah. But yeah.
I love that process, Jonathan. And I think every agency should have, whether they use WIBSCAT or something different, you're having a process, like Hollywood again was saying at the beginning, having a process to work through. And James, you'll know about this, that we used to, we had to conform to various ISO, so I was always having to update our new business processes. But it's really, really important, and it just makes sure we're all human. It just makes sure you don't miss anything, and stick it on your desk or somewhere that you can just make sure that every time you're working on that, you're not forgetting something, because we do a lot of them you'll do naturally, but it's just good to have that tick list reminder.
We also have what we call pitch panel, which is like Dragon's Den. So before halfway through the process, I or somebody in the team, a number of us, will sit and review the pitch, and we'll look at it through those 7 lenses, and we'll say, actually, do you know what? You're missing the S here. You've put all the things in, but I just don't get it. It's so complicated. How do we simplify it? How do we shorten it? And quite often the hardest one to challenge a design team on is the W, because they all go, oh, we're really excited about this. And you go, is this Emperor's New Clothes? It looks really dull to me. I'm sorry, but, and nobody likes to give feedback to a designer that actually, sorry, but
Not as good as you thought. Yeah.
So it's really hard. But that process is really important.
Definitely.
One point that I forgot to mention earlier, as a differentiator that you can maybe build into that process. We chatted about this, social purpose and sustainability.
Yes.
I'm going to try and wrap this up in like 2 minutes.
Yes, love it.
So, there's a chap in the comments, Trevor, who said, do your homework, do your research, take a look on the website. If you took a look on our website right now, you'd see that sustainability is a massive aspect of our company. We're an outdoor company, so the outdoors and the environments that our products operate in are hugely important. But a lot of brands, be them outdoor or otherwise, are making social purpose and sustainability part of not just surface level, like foundational stuff. So for us, Osprey, that goes to the companies that we source our materials from, the way we operate our factories. We have like code of conducts all the way through, and it goes all the way up to how we're talking about ourselves and the causes that we are working with. In this context, there's been a few agencies that I've spoken to that have brought some angle for themselves from a sustainability angle or from a social purpose angle. Maybe they've worked with charities on a gratis approach. Maybe they've offered discounted rates. Maybe they've got sustainability credentials. I know one that I haven't yet been able to work with that I really, really want to work with. They went B Corp, which is incredible, which is a massive sustainability credential. So the one thing I think, it's not obviously, if you're a technical SEO agency, it's difficult to make those leaps often, and it's not a must-have. One thing I will say is that we're living in a very important time for this planet and for all sorts of causes, and don't be afraid to build that into your own ethos and your own foundation. It's not, we don't think it's surface level. We don't see it as like fake or what's it called, I can't remember, but virtue signaling. We don't see it as that. We see what you're trying to do, and as a company, as a brand ourselves, we want to work with companies that are like that. And I think there's lots of brands out there that do want to work with companies that are building in social purpose and sustainability into their organization and pitches.
I have to do a very quick plug, sorry.
Yes,
we do a lot of this with our Sustainability Council, who are amazing. They're like really brilliant. James Cunnings, who's MMT Digital, and then Amy from Good Loop. They've just finished a net carbon negative program, their first kind of cohort, and they're launching another one in January. So I think they had 30 or 40 agencies go through this this year, and hopefully more next year. They're also doing tons of work around sustainable digital products, so the making, what you're actually doing and making every day. So yeah, I 100% agree with what James has said, and there are absolutely, if you want to go the full B Corp way, but there are also other things you can do, certainly with BIMA, and I think other organizations where you can get a little bit further on that journey.
Yeah, I've launched a poll just because I know we've only got 1 minute left, so please vote, because it will help us form or understand what's important to you guys, because we're very busy planning our 2021 content, a new series which we'll be launching probably not in January but beginning of February. So yeah, please do have a quick look at the poll and vote, and there's actually another poll which I will try and launch if we have time. But yeah, on I guess what you guys are saying, I think it's always been something that comes up in RFPs that agencies have thought maybe as a nice to have. I think because of what's happened this year, purpose, sustainability, diversity, all those things, they really are important. They're not just a tick box nice to have. Clients really care about it. We all care about it. So don't leave it out of your agency. I know that there's so much to think about right now. One of the other things, there was a question asked about webinars insights and how, do people really care if they don't know who the agency is? Yes, I think how do you approach and get through to brands? I think you need to understand the needs of your audience, and this is about having a strong value proposition. Understand the needs of your audience, what problems they have, and how you can help solve them, and produce content around that. Not that's the same that everyone else is doing, but that's really truly how you help the brands that you do work with. And quite simply, you can do that by speaking to some of your clients, as a first point of call, and then doing a bit of market research and reading the reports like Holly's produced. But if you can really understand the needs of your audience, we run campaigns for 6-7 man agencies that no one knows, and really big global networks, and we don't have any different results for the agencies that are unknown or known. So it's about having the right content and understanding the needs of your audience. Webinars, I would say, probably are still the things that get us noticed the most, that in terms of starting conversations. I know there's a lot of talk about webinar fatigue, but I think if you've got the subject right, you've got some good speakers, and you position it correctly, it works well. We are 1 minute over. Thank you so much to everyone for joining. I will follow up in a lovely email. Thank you to my amazing guests. If there's anything that we didn't get back to you on, I promise you I will try to do so in my email follow-up. But yeah, a big thank you. Merry Christmas, happy December. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to everyone who's joined us throughout this year. And look forward to a prosperous and hopefully more positive 2020. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.
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 It's 2 a.m. and your website is down. In an out-of-hours scramble, you send out the search party for a developer, but alerts go ignored. No one is answering. Meanwhile, your customers, they're bored of that 404 now, and they've gone to spend their money elsewhere. Now you can sleep easy. We're Just After Midnight, the go-to support people for brands and their agencies, here to protect your revenue and reputation around the clock. With teams of engineers all over the globe, our business is simple. We provide 24/7 full-stack support for mission-critical applications. We help dev teams support major digital platforms and custom apps, and prevent outages in the first place with our managed cloud services. Our tech-enabled support means we can get an engineer on the job within 3 minutes of an alert, 24/7. When you clock off, we clock on. So, get some rest.